For the first time in Taizai, the 7 deadly sins are reunited. If we're not counting flashbacks. This is such a great moment. It's hard to believe that was actually the objective the entire time when you think about it. I mean, the series started off with, Elizabeth meeting Meliodas, Hawk, and then setting out on a journey to find the 7 deadly sins. Discover where they're at, and then round them all up, join together, and be as a team once again. That was the objective of Taizai. It wasn't taking down, Hindi or anything like that. I mean, that's what it eventually turned into, and eventually 10 Commandments as well. But the main objective behind the scenes has always been gathering the 7 deadly sins together. And that finally was accomplished in this chapter. They're all in one area, and they're not missing any memories either, so they're finally ready to do what they need to do. So this is quite the monumental chapter of Taizai, because it's very important, and it concludes a plot point that's been building up since, chapter 1 of this series. So, Nakaba-sensei, I'm excited to see what you do next, because you've been building this up for a very long time. I'm curious to see what our 7 deadly sins are capable of when they all work together as one against whatever opponent they may face. I'm pretty excited about that. So, before I get into anything else on that regard, let's talk about the Diane and, King scene. That was adorable. So, after so much build-up as well, after so many chapters, I mean, we saw it in last week's chapter, but after such a long time, finally, King and Diane are, you can basically say, considered a couple now. I mean, last chapter, Diane comes up, kisses King. King didn't even know what to expect. He's like, what? And then the chapter ends. This chapter, King, goes back and actually kisses Diane and, confirms these feelings. Basically saying, I accept you, Diane, I still love you. So that was a very adorable part of this chapter. Just seeing these two confessing their feelings, and now the ship is just sailing away. Now, I've said this in so many other series, I just want to point this out to make sure people understand. I know that this series is not just about ships or romance or anything like that, but it's nice to see a couple I've been shipping for a long time just, set sail. They're going forward and all that. I mean, every time that King and Diane have grown closer, or they're about to confess their feelings, you have it to where they either get separated, they lose their memories. There's always been tragedy wrapped around these two characters, and I'm glad that after all of this time, after all of these things that's happened throughout the series of Taizai, finally they were able to confront each other about their feelings and admit that they love each other, and then now you can consider them a couple, because the way, King kissed her back, Diane kissed her in last week's chapter, that just proves that they do care about each other. So, just Nakaba-sensei, I do appreciate that. You finally confirming this ship, but at the same time, I'm just glad that it didn't end up in tragedy. I mean, usually when stuff like that happens with these two, it always ends up in sadness. Hopefully you don't kill one of them off in future chapters. That'd be kind of messed up. But still, I'm just glad to see these two, actually a couple now. Now, speaking of which, besides the romance stuff, let's talk about the actual growth of, King. So, King is getting wings, which we expected because of last week's chapter and all that. We knew he was probably going to get wings, because that's, the only power-up he really can get, to be able to have a lot more strength. And he has his wings coming in. You see these tiny little wings on his back, which is, it's fucking hilarious, because the way they look are so small compared to his body, and you think about the previous Fairy King and look at King's wings, it's just oh my god, the size difference between these wings are absolutely hilarious. But from what the previous Fairy King says, he's like, don't worry, all wings are like this, my wings were like this when they first started, coming out, so most likely that King's wings look like this, and previous Fairy King, stated that. I'm assuming King's wings are going to get as big as the Fairy King's. It's probably going to look fabulous. I cannot wait to see King's design when his wings finally just grow out. I mean, just imagine. I can already imagine this man having this pretty butterfly-looking wings just popping out and all that. I'm really interested to see where Nakaba-sensei wants to take that design, because, I mean, the previous Fairy King, he looks awesome with his design. I just can't imagine King and all that with his design, with his wings and all that. I mean, just imagine the power boost as well. So King got his, power boost and all that. He now has his wings coming in, so that's going to be very interesting to see, what Nakaba-sensei does with that design. Now, on the other side as well, we also have it to where Diane and King both admit that they've been a little bit rude towards Galther and that they want to confront him and kind of make things right. And as we saw from, the flashback arc, Diane, and King, they realized that Galther is not the person they thought he was. He actually is a good dude. He just misunderstood. And so they want to, put Galther down the right path, teach him, the right things and all that, and that's probably what they're going to be doing in the future chapters. Diane and King are probably going to sit down with Galther and talk to him about it, and then how, Diane lost her memories, and then how, her memories came back. I feel like there's just going to be a big combo between these characters. Now, one of the things I am interested about is if, Galther remembers Diane and King from the past. Now, we do know that the time was fixing itself by this invisible force. We don't know what that is yet, but most likely that will play a role eventually down the road in Taizai. But for now, though, just looking past that, I wonder if Galther does remember Diane. The actual real Galther fixing her memories. I wonder if he remembers that at all, or if, that was just altered as well, like it's just completely gone. I'm very curious about that when Diane finally brings that up and starts talking about it, what he's going to say about that. But then we also move over into the other section, too, of the chapter, which is the Sins gathering together. With all of them gathering together, that means the main objective of, helping out or doing whatever they need to do for the world and all that is finally going to be taking place. So I'm kind of curious to see where Nakaba-sensei wants to take the story, because there's a lot of potential here. I mean, we found out a lot from the flashback arc of what the Angels did to, what the Demon Clan kind of did as well. We saw both perspectives when it came to, Stigma, but also what the other civilizations do, like the fairies, to, the giants, to the demons, angels, humanity. We got to see the different perspectives, how all of them were thrown into this turmoil, and also we got a little bit more development with Elizabeth as well, showing that she's very powerful, so there's more to her than meets the eye as well. So all of these little things from the flashback arc, there's so many potential paths that Nakaba-sensei can take the story now because of what just happened. Now, one last thing I do want to talk about before I conclude this video is Oslo. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. The little dog that, has been around in the series since, like, the beginning. Well, apparently, from what we found out in this chapter, is that Oslo is Ro. That is, I mean, it's not something that is unexpected, because, I mean, look, reincarnation has been a big thing in Taizai. It always has. It's been there with Hawk, it's been there with, Elizabeth, and then we saw, how Meliodas constantly comes back from the grave. Well, we know these type of things are there. Well, we know reincarnation is a big part of this series, so Ro being reincarnated into Oslo, it's unexpected that it's Oslo, but reincarnation, it's been a thing in Taizai since, like, the very beginning. And on top of that, I was assuming that, maybe Ro was Bon, but apparently not. So my question is exactly what is Bon's relationship with Ro? Because they look too similar. They're way too similar, and I'm under the impression now that maybe Ro had some form of child or whatever, and after many generations, probably Bon was born. I mean, we don't really know much about Bon's family. We saw his, foster father, but we don't know much about his real family, so I wonder if he is, a descendant of Ro in any way, because, I mean, I don't really think that it's just, an art thing going on there with Ro and Bon. There's just way too many similarities in their design for Nakaba-sensei to just, do an accidental identical character design. I mean, he does have characters that look very similar sometimes, but just the way Ro and Bon look, they just look way too similar for them not to be related, and so since we now know that Oslo is, Ro reincarnated, it still doesn't throw out the possibility that before Ro died, that he could have had a child or something, or a family, and then eventually Bon was born many generations after. So I'm just going to hang on to that possibility for now, because I just do not feel like Nakaba-sensei would make those two character designs very similar if it wasn't for some importance, but also for, Ro to still be alive inside of Oslo. And it's just crazy when you think about it that Ro has been a character in this series since the very beginning. He has been with our characters. He's always been there. It really puts a little bit more insight to Ro, or Oslo in general, when it comes to the story of Taizai from all the things we have seen since the beginning of the series. So, yeah, job well done, Nakaba-sensei. That was a nice little twist you did and all that, and how Oslo was, protecting, King for, Jiharde, and how she's like, you need to protect him and all that, but he was actually, like, protecting her since, he was very young when he was first born. So, good stuff. Very good stuff. Wonderful chapter. Can't wait to see where, Nakaba-sensei wants to take it next. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I love y'all so much. Thank you for watching. Please be safe. Chibi out.